Okay. All right, so welcome everybody to how to DIY your own PRD, which is short for Personal Retreat Day. Thank you all for taking this hour out of your day to learn how to rest and relax a little bit more productively. That's what we're going to talk about today. So I'll start by just doing a quick introduction of myself. My name is Steph Kelly. I work at Digitas in creative strategy. And then I also run a coaching practice at night, and I specialize in helping professionals recover from burnout, reclaim the part of their life that they lost to work, and then redefine what it means to have balance between work and life and to really put their wellness first. So today's topic is very near and dear to my heart. I feel like I needed this throughout my entire career and really just discovered it this past year. So that's why I wanted to share it with this group today. So I got my coaching certification a couple of years ago in 2019. And one of the reasons I love to do workshops is because I love to share some of the things that I've learned in coaching with groups of people so that I can bring those tools to a broader audience. So please feel free as we go along today to ask any questions that you have, or put some stuff in the chat if you want to react to certain things that I'm presenting. And also please make sure that you have a sheet of paper and a pen to write with, because we'll be doing a little bit of an exercise later on. Okay, so to kick off, I wanted to start with a little energy check-in and just sort of reflect for each one of us to reflect on, like, where are you at today? It's the end of the week. It's Friday at noon. We're probably all looking towards the weekend. And so on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being totally dragging and barely making it through today, and 5 being on the opposite end of that. So feeling like my tank is full, I'm ready to take on the day. Where are you? And if you wouldn't mind, throw your answer in the chat. I'd love to see, where people are at with this, just as you're coming into today. Okay, so we've got a 2.53, 2, 3, 2, 2, 2, 3. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm feeling the 2s today. I'm not totally depleted, but it's felt like a long week. My hope for you is that by the end of today's session, you'll have a tangible plan for how to raise that number up. And for those of you who might already be at a 5, yay for you. Let's get you to a 6 and get you even better. So it's no surprise to anyone here that this past year has been extremely hard. But it's been particularly hard on people in our industry and specifically women. The pandemic has taken a toll on women, moms, and marketers in particular, more than other kind of industries and other people. We've collectively gone through this unprecedented time, constantly navigating new normals and new rules and, what's the next shoe to drop? And that is really exhausting. It's a drain on our energy, and it's sort of an additional thing that we have to take on in life that we're not necessarily, equipped to do. So when we look at the facts and figures behind this, Harvard Business Review did a global study several months ago, I think it was earlier this year, where the results showed that overwhelmingly, almost 90% of people claim their life is getting worse. Over 60% have experienced burnout, either often or extremely often in the last 3 months, and 39% felt that they were unable to maintain a meaningful connection with their colleagues. So even though we sort of see this light at the end of the tunnel with COVID, people are still burnt out and really struggling socially, mentally, physically. And I'm not sure if this, this fact resonates with anyone here. It really struck a chord with me when I saw it that, you know, a lot of times, 14 times in fact, we say that, oh yeah, I'm fine, every week, but less than 1 in 5 people actually mean that. And I think that, you know, we get into the habit of saying we're fine even when we're not. And hopefully today we get past the facade of fine and tap into some strategies that will help us truly restore ourselves and get to a place of more than fine. And you know, in advertising in particular, a lot of us have sort of accepted this belief or mentality that work is hard, life is hard, and I just need to figure out how to deal with it. And we don't usually stop to question, like, how true is that? Does it really have to be this hard? I love this quote from an article in The Atlantic about, you know, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. That whole mantra or adage is sort of saying, like, the kitchen is what it is, advertising is what it is, and you're going to have to figure it out and deal with it, without ever saying, like, does the kitchen have to be that hot? And I'm hoping today that we can find a way to say, like, no, it doesn't. My belief is it doesn't, and that's what a lot of my my coaching and my work is around, is actually trying to get people out of the mentality that, like, I just have to tolerate what's going on. So earlier this year, that was the question I was sort of grappling with at the beginning of this year. 2020 was so hard, and I really didn't want 2021 to follow suit. So I started this year with the intention of finding an easier way to life. I knew it wasn't going to be like a 180 shift, but I just wanted to try out different strategies and different tools to find out, like, how could I take care of myself a little bit better and in different ways than what I had tried in the past. So a couple of weeks into the new year, I watched a talk on the idea of personal retreat days that we're going to talk about today, and I was immediately intrigued by it. And it's been really game changing for me over the last 9 or so months since I started doing them. And so today I really wanted to share the practice with you and teach you how to do it so that you could also test it out and see if it works for you. So first, let's break it down. Personal retreat day. Personal is really about focusing on what you need right now. Like, what do you as an individual, as a mother, as a sister, as a employee, as a manager, what do you need right now in order to feel more like yourself, or feel a little bit more energy than you had going into it? The retreat is literally retreating from the day-to-day, retreating from your tech, your family, your responsibilities, leaving those behind as much as you possibly can so that you can truly have a day off, or a couple of days off, or even a couple of hours off if that's all that you can manage. And then finally, day. So that is that we try and take these days, these personal retreat days, once a month for as much time as you can. And again, if it's just an hour or half a day, or if it's a day, great. But it's really about committing to the time that you can take off and truly retreat. So I want to ask this group, you know, when was the last time you took time off? And you can throw it in the chat if you feel comfortable doing that, or you can just sort of reflect on it in your head. But when was the last time you took time off? And it could be a day or an hour or whatever. And then what I want you to think of is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high and 1 being low, how restored or rejuvenated did you feel when you returned to work after that time off? And I would love for you to throw that in the chat if you would be so inclined to do so. So let's see, like, when people did most recently, when you've taken time off, how did you feel when you returned to work? How restored or rejuvenated? 10 being totally restored, 1 being not at all. Okay, 5, 6, 5. Yeah, so those days that are intended to kind of fill you back up again and refuel you aren't necessarily doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they're only getting you to a half a tank, so to speak. And so personal retreat days are different than just a regular PTO day. And part of that is because of this key insight that's sort of driving the behavior of personal retreat days, which is that like time off or relaxation does not always equal rejuvenation or restoration. Sometimes it can just be like sort of a zero sum. Like it's not bad, it's not good, it's just time off, and then I go back to work. And that's probably what's happening with a lot of these people who are experiencing 4s and 5s. I certainly resonate with that. So let's look into the benefits of doing a personal retreat day. And these are just benefits that I've personally noticed with them, but I'm sure it's a little bit different for everyone. So one, it allows me to be more productive when I come back because I'm truly rested and I've given myself some space. It allows me to focus on my values and what's important to me. And so at least once a month, I'm having a day that's just for me and just to explore, what matters to me. It allows a little bit of balance, and just a little bit of balance, because knowing that, it's just a day or just half a day, it might not be what I want or what I would dream of, but it's enough to get me back into a more balanced state. I also use my personal retreat days for some time for self-improvement and growth. And I'll talk about a couple examples later on. But that's one of the big things that I've gotten out of that is a day every month where I get to reflect on, like, where am I at in my life? What's worked from the past month? And then what hasn't worked so well, and what do I want to do differently? It allows me to be creative and get like a chance to actually make something, whether that's knitting or cooking or even just making up a dance or something. That it can be any type of creativity for me. And then finally, it allows me to rest and rejuvenate. So what we're going to do today, the plan for today, is we're going to go over the 3 Ps of personal retreat days. I'm going to share a little bit of inspiration around each one of those to jog your thoughts and to get some ideas going for you. Then we're going to break out into pairs where we can do some initial planning around your own personal retreat day, so that hopefully by the end of this hour, you're walking out with, here's when I'm going to do my personal retreat day, here's what I want to focus on, and here's like a couple of activities that will get me closer to that focus. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about accountability. So any questions before we dive in? Just shout them out if you have them. Okay. All right, so the 3 Ps. First, we want to just figure out, like, what's the purpose or the intention of our day? And that way, it's almost like I'm a strategist. So the purpose is almost like writing a brief for your day. Like, what is it that you need? And how can you get that down into one sentence? And then we'll design a day around that through the personalization piece and the place. So the place is simply the where and when. Where are you going to do this? When are you going to do this? And then personalization is starting to put some thought around the actual design of your day. So let's dive into purpose first. And there is no right or wrong answer for this, but a couple different purposes that it could be are, focusing on gratitude, mapping out the next few months of life, setting goals and reflecting on the previous month, as I mentioned before, carving out me time, pampering yourself, sparking creativity, finishing a project, moving your body. I mean, we're all kind of stuck at our desks a lot more these days than we were in the past. And so it could be any of the above or really anything else, whatever you really need in this moment. And so I want you to take out your paper and pen, because we're going to do a little bit of an exercise right now in thinking about the purpose for the day. So I'm going to give you a couple prompts. It's kind of like a self-care Mad Libs, and I'll introduce the prompts, and then I'll give you some time to fill them in. And before I do that, I'm going to give you an example of how you could fill this in, but really it should be tailored to your own needs and your own purpose. But I'll show you an example. So first, you're going to say, what if my challenges right now is blank? And you can just fill that in with whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a long thing. It can just be like a couple words or a couple bullets about like a top of mind challenge that you're facing right now. Then what you're going to do is you're going to fill in the second piece, which is I want to design a retreat to help me blank. And that could be that, or that should be related directly to that challenge above. So I want to design a retreat to help me blank. So what do you want to get out of that retreat day? And that should probably be inspired by whatever challenge you're going off of. And then the last part is so that I can feel blank. So I want to design a retreat day to help me blank so that I can feel blank. So that could be, I want to feel more of something. I want to feel less of something. I want to feel different. I want to feel better, whatever it is. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to try this out on your own. But before we do, I'm just going to provide one example to get your mind going. So one of my challenges right now is feeling burnt out. I'm sure we can all relate to that on some level. So I want to design a retreat to help me reset and reprioritize, because when I get into burnout, I just sort of get a tunnel vision into whatever I'm doing, and I sort of lose track of like the broader picture and what my priorities should be. So that's what I want to design my retreat to help with, so that I can feel rejuvenated and energized. Because right now I don't feel rejuvenated, and I certainly don't feel energized. I feel pretty drained. So we're going to take a minute or two, and I want you to jot down your own answers to this Mad Libs. And if anyone has any questions, go ahead and shout them out, or put it in the chat, and I will do my best to answer it. Okay, so start wrapping up whatever you're writing. And if anyone is willing to share theirs with the group, I would love to hear one or two if anyone is brave enough to do that.
I can share mine.
Okay, perfect.
So one of my challenges right now is not feeling fulfilled. I think we kind of get bogged down with a lot of different things, and there's sometimes not like one clear direction. So I want to design a retreat to help me find purpose within myself, so that I can then like apply that to my work setting, and so that I can feel motivated.
I love that. And that was Addie, right?
Yep.
Well, thanks so much for sharing, Addie. I think that's a really great example. And I think it's one that a lot of us could totally relate to. Not feeling fulfilled, wanting to feel like you have some grasp of your purpose, and then that would then help you feel a little bit more motivated. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
I can also share.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I said that one of my challenges right now is constant busyness and burnout. I want to design a retreat to help me slow down and reprioritize so that I can feel fulfilled, grounded, and like I love myself.
Wow, love that. And that's Tatiana.
Yep.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. So the busyness and the burnout. Oh my gosh. Yes. Such a challenge right now. And then designing a retreat to help you slow down and prioritize. I can already start to imagine with that brief, so to speak, what that retreat day looks like. Of like really taking time to like be in the moment and and kind of like just slow down from the busyness, put a pause on that. And then, yeah, feeling fulfilled and more grounded. Yeah, great example. Thanks so much for sharing. Love that. These are awesome. Okay, so now that we all have our briefs for our day, let's talk a little bit about the place. Okay, so this is a pretty simple question, but it also goes into the type of day you're trying to create. So for the two examples that we had, if you're looking to find your purpose, that might lead you to a different place and a different setting than looking to slow down and reprioritize. Like, I don't know if I'm going to go to a local hostel, for example, if I'm looking to slow down. That might be a little too chaotic. But I might go to a cabin or to a park or to a hotel room by myself just to feel like a little special and maybe get some pampering done. So really, truth be told, the personal retreat days can happen anywhere. But when you put a little bit of thought into what you're trying to achieve and the type of place that would best enable that, it makes it like that much better for you, or that much more likely that you're going to get what you're intending to get out of the day. So, in full transparency, I've only ever done mine at home. But I make sure that whenever I do mine, no one else is home and I have the house to myself. If that's not possible, I would definitely look to one of these other options of like, okay, can I go to a friend's apartment if they're not there, or a cabin or something like that? Because it's important, I think, that that you have space and that you're not, hearing roommates or spouses or dogs or kids in the background. So now the other part of place is when you're going to do it. And so what I want everyone to do right now is actually pull up their calendars. It could be in your phone or on your computer. And I want you to actually pick a day, hopefully in October, that would be ideal, a day when you're going to do this. And remember, it could be a couple hours, a full day, a couple of days. That would be amazing. Whatever you can manage. And I want you to actually pull up your calendar right now and do this, because it's so easy to say, oh, yeah, this is a great idea. I'll schedule it when I have a chance. And then that chance never happens. So we're all going to collectively on the call do this right now. So go ahead and open up your calendars, pick a day that would work for you and a time, and put a calendar hold on there. And actually block the time out of your calendar. And as you do that, I'm going to share a little bit about one of the kind of learnings that I took away from when it works for me. Every time I do a personal retreat day of my own, I try different things and I experiment with different things and make little adjustments to see like what works best. And for me, like, I've actually really enjoyed scheduling these on Wednesdays, right smack dab in the middle of the week. It's the perfect midweek break. I don't have to wait till the end of the week to get like my quote unquote reward. And it kind of feels like doing it during the week, during work. It kind of feels like I'm skipping school or something. It has that sort of like feeling that I used to have when I would like be taken out of school midday to like, I don't know, go out with my mom or something like that. So as you pick your day, try something this month, try something different next month. But yeah, for me, there's something really cool about doing it midweek. And I've never like taken days off midweek. I always like do it on a Monday or a Friday so I can make a longer weekend. But that was one of the learnings that I took from this. And then just as a reminder, you want to confirm with your team or with your manager so that you can really fully be out of the office this day and not be thinking about, oh, what's going on at work or are things covered. It removes that anxiety bug that might come up when you're taking a day for yourself. Okay, so I'm assuming that everyone has their day booked, and hopefully everyone's got that down in their calendars. Okay, so the third P we're going to talk about is the personalization piece. And this is really about designing the time that you have very intentionally so that you're feeling restored, inspired, and accomplished, whatever you want to feel by the end of it. And, part of the reason that we do this is like really the crux of the personal retreat days. And part of the reason we do this is like, how many of us have taken a day off and been like, okay, I'm going to take this day off and it's going to be great and it's going to be so restful. And then you end up like doing a bunch of stuff or getting sucked into like a marathon on Bravo or running errands or whatever. And you're like, wow, that wasn't really what I wanted to do with my day off, but that's how I spent it. This is why we actually like plan out the day ahead of time. So you'll want to look at your brief that we wrote in the purpose section, and then you want to just think about like what types of, if you were designing a retreat day for someone else or designing an experience for a friend, going off of that brief, what kind of like experiences or activities or music or scents or food would you curate for them? That's how I like to think about it. It's sort of hard to think about it for myself, but if I think about it, like I'm designing this for someone else based on this specific request that they're making, then I can get really creative in coming up with what I want to do with it. So referring back to that purpose, consider what you need in order to feel how you want to feel. And kind of like jot down, what are 3 things that you'd like to include in your retreat? They can be 3 things off of this slide, or 3 things that best fit the vision you're trying to bring to life. So take a couple minutes right now and jot down 3 different things that are part of your day that answer your original brief of what you want more of and what you want to get out of it. And as we're writing these down, if anyone is willing to share their example of the things that are going to be a part of their day, I would just love to hear them. I can share some examples while we're waiting of things that I've done on my retreat days. So I always try and put a little bit of pampering in it, because a lot of my purposes are about, really restoring and rejuvenating myself after working so hard. So I always try and put a little bit of pampering, whether it's a massage or a facial, something like that. I try and start my days off with like some stretching or some hatha yoga, so that I can just like have a really relaxing ease into the day. And then I also I keep a list of different articles or podcasts or videos that people send me throughout the month, or I collect throughout the month, and then I set some time aside to read them or to listen to them or to review them. And it's so nice because in the past those would just get like, they would just like pile up and I would never actually get through them. So this is like, my retreat days are an opportunity for me to get inspired through the things that I'm collecting throughout the month. So anyone want to share what's on their list? Okay, no worries, no worries. So one other thing I wanted to share about a practice that I've gotten into is reflecting on the previous month. And I asked myself a couple of questions as the reflection piece, and then I'll share with you how I do my goal setting each month, because that's always a part of my personal retreat days as well, is like the self-growth piece and making sure that I'm working towards something. So in reflection, I look at like, what were my highlights from the last month? What did I learn? That could be things that went really well or things that did not go well. What do I want to do differently next month? How have I been feeling generally, both emotionally and also physically? Like, where am I at in terms of how I'm feeling? What am I grateful for? And then who's, 1 or 2 people that I really want to connect with in the next month? And your questions for reflection, if you choose to do this, can really be anything. These are mine that that I've kind of developed over time. But whatever questions best fit where you're at in your life right now are totally fine to use as the reflection piece. And then in terms of looking forward, this is the template that I use each month to set goals. So what I do is and this I'll send this out with the deck today, so you can have a copy of it. But I have several different categories on the side: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, career, and then I think there's like an other category down at the bottom. And then I go through each one, and I usually spend about an hour doing this. I go through each one and I say, okay, like, let me review and look back on the past month about how I'm doing physically. Okay, so oopsies, sorry. And so I look at like what's working physically and what's not working physically. So in this case, like yoga was working, booked a facial, I've been going to bed early and then like eating fruit. Not working was like I wasn't spending a lot of time outside. I was eating some takeout a little too much, and then I'm scrolling social media at night, which is kind of taking time away from my sleep. So then the next section I go on to is like a little tiny brainstorm of what I could work on in terms of like the physical aspect of my life. So I thought like, okay, I could do a couch to 5K. I could go on walks with my family. I could try and eat more fruits and vegetables, or I can substitute fruit as snacks. So that was my quick little brainstorm of what to do. Then you go on to the next box, and that's really about like choosing from that list that you just made, what's one thing that you want to focus on in the next month. For me, back in March, I chose to do a couch to 5K, which for those who might not know what that is, it's literally going from being a couch potato to running a 5K in about 2 months. So I wanted to start my journey of doing a couch to 5K. And then the last box is really about putting a plan into place. So what is the exact step? What's one step I need to take in order to make that couch to 5K happen? So for me, I needed to download the program, commit to running 3 times per week after dropping my daughter off in the morning. And so that was kind of, at least for the physical piece, that was how I went through, okay, this month, I'm going to commit to a couch to 5K, and I'm going to do that by downloading the app and then running after I drop off my daughter in the morning. And so you can go through each of these individual prompts, like the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and career, and just sort of set goals around those each month. And then what I do at the next retreat day is like review that again and say, okay, what kind of progress did I make? What worked? What didn't work? Etc. So again, I'll send this template along in case anyone's interested in using this for themselves, but it can really be as simple as, what do I want to work on this month? And then setting a goal for that. You don't have to go through the whole thing if that feels like too much. Okay, so now let's kind of bring this all together and bring it home for you. So in terms of crafting your day, I'm going to give you one example, and then we're going to actually make sure that your day is fully crafted, so you can walk out of here with a plan. So my purpose, my one thought is that I wanted to reflect, reset, and rejuvenate. My place and plan is that I'm going to do a Wednesday at the end of the month, and I want to do it in an empty house. And then my personalization, so like 3 ideas for what I can do to create a retreat day. I want to do a bike ride on the lakefront path. I want to do goal setting in the park if the weather cooperates, and I want to do lunch at my favorite restaurant in my neighborhood. So that's like an example of how you can start to put some structure around, here's my purpose, here's the place and the plan, and then here's a couple ideas on how I can personalize this. So now I'd love for everyone to, I'm going to break everyone out into pairs, and I'd love for you to share with your partner what your purpose is, what your place and plan is, and how you want to personalize your day. And maybe as you share, you can get inspired by your partner, and maybe get some feedback on your own plan, and then take this time also to set up some accountability. You know, maybe find 15 minutes with your partner a month from now to chat about how your first personal retreat day was, and to check in on that person, even if it's just a quick little Teams chat to say, hey, how was your, how was your PRD last month? Mine was great, or mine didn't happen and here's why. Whatever it is. So I am going to I'm going to just quickly break everyone down into pairs, and we will we'll do this. Okay, so let's see. Hopefully this is creating enough rooms, and then we'll come back in a couple of minutes. I'll call everyone back, and then we can finish up and close out. So Teams is creating the room. There we go. Okay. Okay, so one room has 3, but that's okay. All right.
you know, it's like when I'm in that depression or like, the time went by so quick.
I know.
I just heard someone saying that the time went by too quick. So I'm curious if anyone wants to share, their experience in the groups and maybe what they learned from their partners.
I think we all like the fact that you said, get your calendar out.
Yeah.
Schedule it. Do it.
Yes. Yes, for sure. I mean, it's so easy to be like, wow, what a great idea. I'm going to do that one day. And then that one day never comes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you, Diane. That's a great point. All right. Okay, so a little bit of a reminder, just as we wrap up, you want to think about like your boundaries around this day. What might get in the way of your PRD? Maybe your family, your kids, your responsibilities, your clients, your work, the weather, like a lot of stuff can get in the way. And because this is your time, you really want to make sure that you can kind of like plan around it and make sure that it doesn't get in the way. Maybe letting your team know that whatever date you picked earlier today, let them know today that that's the day you're going to take off and you won't be available. Also look at what support you might need. So maybe you need a teammate to step in and cover a client meeting, or a spouse or roommate to not be at home, or you need to borrow a friend's place so you can have some space to yourself. Whatever support you need in this, it's good to think through what that might be and start to plan a little bit for that so that you can have the best day possible. And then also what should not be part of your PRD. So I know I talked a little bit earlier about like, I don't want anyone in the house when I'm doing mine. That's part of like, that's part of what should not be part of mine. Maybe technology shouldn't be part of yours. Maybe, junk food shouldn't be part of yours, or healthy food shouldn't be part of yours. Whatever it is, maybe stress shouldn't be part of yours. But think through like what that might be, that you want to put that boundary up. And then a couple tips for how to make it happen on a team. So one is, like I said earlier, I love to do mine during the week, but if it's not possible, you can always use the weekend. If you're a manager, if you manage people, make sure your team feels empowered to take their time. So I like to think of this on my team as like, I like to lead by example. So when I take my time, I do not check in, and I don't expect them to check in either. And then ultimately it's your responsibility to book your day and stick with it. Put it in your calendar, set the intention to stick with it, and then do your best not to budge on that. So a couple more guidelines to an awesome personal retreat day. I like to have like almost low or no tech at all. Shut off all my notifications, close my laptop, and shut my phone off. Schedule it. We talked about that already. I also think it's important to do it mostly or completely solo. If you do decide to do it with a friend, you want to make sure that like your purposes are pretty close to being aligned, because if my purpose was to have a slow and relaxing and sort of like tech-free day, and my friend's purpose was to get a bunch of stuff done on her business and to make a bunch of calls and to be super productive, those are sort of conflicting, and like her experience would probably take away from mine and my experience would take away from hers. So you want to make sure that like if you are going to do it with someone, you're aligned on what you plan on getting out of it. I also like to think about like having a plan, but then also having some space for flexibility, which is why I only have you choose like 3 things that you want to do during your day. Because having that flexibility of, you know what, I woke up today and I don't feel like going for a run. Well, it's your day. So if a run is part of your PRD and you don't feel like it, you should be able to honor that feeling and be flexible in the plan. And then I also find it really helpful to have a very clear beginning and end. And maybe even creating like a ritual around that. So like whether that's like lighting a candle at the beginning to signify, okay, this is my day is starting, and you know, it starts with this candle lighting. Or like I was sharing, I start my PRDs with a yoga session, and then I usually end it with like a glass of wine. But you can start and end yours in whatever way makes the most sense, but it helps to put a bookend around it, to have something to signify the beginning and then something to signify the end. So that's all I have for you today. I wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions or any sharing that this group would like to do about the content that we covered, or about any questions you have about PRDs or burnout or coaching. So I'll just I'll leave it at that and see if anyone has any questions or wants to share anything.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. I really appreciated this session. My partner and I, Chelsea, realized that we were also talking about boundaries, or the lack thereof, that exists when we typically try to have these type of personal events for us, and also realizing that when we're in that space of burnout, it can oftentimes stifle our creativity. And so I wanted to share that earlier, but I was on a busy train, so just thought I would share that and express my appreciation for this session. So thank you so much.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Tatiana. And I'm glad to hear that you were able to also make a connection with your partner, and find some commonalities there. That's great. One quick reminder is to, make a little note for yourself. Write down who your partner was, and make a little note for yourself to check in with them in a month or so and see how they're doing, if they're practicing the PRDs and how theirs was, and if they didn't, how they might get back on track with that, or what type of support they might need to do a little bit more there. Okay, anyone else? All right, well, thank you all so much. I know everyone is so busy, and I just want to say thank you so much for your time today and for joining us for this session. Hopefully this was helpful, and I can't wait. I would love to hear about your PRDs if you want to share those with me, like over email or something like that. But I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day off. And yeah, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks so much for the content, Steph.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, bye-bye, everyone. Have a great day.